With a new president comes a new administration. Kari Lake is the president-elect's nominee for the director of Voice of America. VOA is a government agency. It was launched just as World War II was ending. It was created to combat anti-United States propaganda. Broadcasts in 48 languages around the world. VOA is funded by the U.S. and is committed to serve as an unbiased and reliable source of news and information. Now, you may know Kari Lake from her political career, but before politics, Kari Lake had a very impressive career in journalism spanning decades. President-elect Trump's nominee for the director of VOA, Kari Lake, joins me. Nice to see you.
It's good to be here, Greta. Thanks for having me.
You're going back to journalism.
Yes. Well, I always say once a journalist, always a journalist, because you have those kind of instincts to dig in. And actually, it served me well when I decided to get into politics. You know, I think some people know my story. I was a 30-year career broadcast journalist and moved my way into sitting in the anchor chair at the anchor desk. But still, my favorite thing to do was always to be a reporter. And it was during COVID that I realized that a lot of propaganda had been pushed on us, and there wasn't a lot of pushback from the corporate media. And so I made the difficult decision to step away from a 7-figure contract into the great unknown and just say, if I can't do true journalism, I don't want to do it. And it was only then that I stepped into politics without ever having an intention. As a matter of fact, I thought if you got into politics, you got to be crazy because it's such a ruthless business. But when I walked away, I'd covered Arizona in such a fair manner for so many decades. The amazing people of that state reached out and said, would you please run for office? And enough people did it that I said, you know, I think I will do that.
But VOA, very few Americans know about VOA because it doesn't broadcast in the United States. By charter, it's outside. Now, of course, it streams into the United States and has a very robust website. I volunteered there for a number of years at a show. Even I did a documentary in Bangladesh in a monsoon. But I loved it. But it's fascinating because it's 48 languages you're going to be in charge of. It's like 48 networks.
I think they added one since then.
40, so it's 49
now.
But I mean, it's an extraordinary challenge, an extraordinary opportunity.
It really is. And you know, what a great story we have as Americans. Freedom, liberty. And we're in a place in the world where a lot of people don't have that. And so we need to be spreading that message around the globe and making sure that we don't want to see people who are oppressed across the globe. So we have a great story to tell. I know there's some incredible journalists there. I'm looking forward to jumping in. And you mentioned a lot of Americans don't know about it. When people found out that President Trump had nominated me to be the director of Voice of America, I had a lot of people reach out and say, this sounds perfect. I didn't know that existed. And so
but it actually has a broad. It's funny, like, you know, when I've gone overseas, people recognize me, and they recognize me from VOA for the 2 or 3 years that I was there doing stuff there. That's when they recognize me. But but it's a much bigger game.
It truly is, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to jumping into that role. I want to make sure that we're expanding our coverage, making sure we're doing more journalism. Some of the great pieces that you covered, but I also want to make sure we're jumping into the world that we're in now. And a lot of times, it's a short clip. I saw your documentaries and the pieces that you worked on. Incredible. In some ways, we now need.
It's exciting.
In some ways, we need to take that now. And while we do those long format pieces, we also need to do short format clips and get them out about what we're doing. And so I'm looking forward to jumping into this role. I think we are going into a consequential period in our country. And I said this when I was doing an interview a couple of weeks ago. Someone said, "Oh, you're just going to turn this into Trump TV." And I'm not shy. I think President Trump's incredible. I think he's been an amazing president. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years.
Which means, can you work with Democrats? I mean, not that this is a political job, really, but I mean, you're going to get called to Capitol Hill when some country complains about some report by some reporter. You're going to get called to Capitol Hill.
Of course, I can work with Democrats. I worked in the media for 30 years.
Of course, I gave you that one. I handed you that one.
Every newsroom I worked in was 95% liberal. That's just the way it is right now. And I don't think it should be that way. I like the idea of diversity of ideology. I think a newsroom should be mixed and made up of people with different ideologies.
But if you stick to the facts, you're safe.
Stick to the facts.
Stick to the facts, you're safe. It's when you sort of go over that line.
And make sure that we're not anti-American. We have an incredible story to tell, but we also need to push for transparency. And there's times we do need to question our government. And so that means we're going to cover things fairly. Listen, I've got opinions, and the people who follow my political career, the hardest part, by the way, Greta, of getting into politics for me as a 30-year journalist was sharing my opinion. It's very difficult when you have said, look, I'm going to keep my opinion to myself. I'm a journalist, but when I got into politics, then I did have to share my opinion. But as a journalist, you should be able to take that bias, be aware of what your bias is, and to be able to check that as you cover this administration. So whether you love President Trump, you don't, we have to cover this administration fairly. Because the world is watching, and they're watching what we're doing.
I don't know. People, I think you struck gold. I think you got the best job in government. So welcome to Washington. Congratulations, and I look forward to seeing what you do over there.
I wish I could bring some Arizona weather with me. I don't think that's possible. That might be impossible.
It's a little nippier. It's going to be like 25 degrees for the inauguration, and we're all going to freeze to death. But anyway.
That's okay. It's worth it for me to see this history. It's worth it.
Anyway, nice to see you.
Thank you, Greta.